We are about to embark on an immersive journey through the corridors of our minds. Stand by as we prepare for departure.
Welcome aboard, everyone, to the Productivity with Peace of Mind podcast adventure. Our journey will begin in just a moment. Inhale deeply and exhale. Our voyage takes us on a captivating tour, diving deep into the intricate layers of our thoughts and imagination. Brace yourselves for the complexities of our evolution. For a safe and enjoyable journey, stay seated, secure your helmet and protective goggles, and keep hands, feet, and legs inside while the ride is moving. Now relax and enjoy.
What if I told you that a lot of our success actually comes from the ability to become a strong and firm boundary setter? That's what we're going to cover today with our guest, Tracy. She covers how and why it is so important and what we can do to protect our time and energy so that we can actually do the things that we want to do. Tracy Beavers is the CEO and founder of Tracy Beavers Coaching. She has a 20-year award-winning career in marketing, sales, and helping businesses grow. She has a national recognition by Vanity Fair, Lingerie, and has contributions to top business podcasts and TV shows. She's an expert coach for Kajabi and creator of Business Visibility Made Easy and Be a Confident Entrepreneur. Her passion for helping entrepreneurs overcome the fear of sales and grow their business visibility through organic marketing. Today, we're going to talk to you guys about how we can leverage time management and boundary setting. So, welcome, Tracy. If you want to go ahead and add anything to your introduction.
Thanks, Lindsay. I'm just excited to be here. I think you did a beautiful job. And I don't know who that girl was you were talking about, but she sounds really cool.
She is very cool.
Every time somebody introduces me, I always look around like, what are they talking about? But
Is it me? That's you, girl.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Well, I love the idea that we're talking about boundaries today. And I want to know why you think that boundaries really are so critical and so important for our business success, for our personal well-being. Like there's so many facets to where this benefits us in our life. And I want you to talk a little bit about that with us.
You bet. And listen, boundaries is not a fun topic. You say the word boundaries and everybody goes, womp womp. It's kind of like doing chores. Nobody wants to do that either. But
Yeah.
boundaries are so fundamentally crucial to the success of any business, specifically the business owner. Without the
Yeah.
boundaries, the business itself is not going to run efficiently. It's possible that the business might squirrel off into a completely different path that ends up not being productive, not being profitable. I mean, there's so many scary things that can happen when the bumpers are not put around the business practices, the vision for the business, the direction of the business, and specifically with time management. As CEOs, we have to have boundaries around our time, or we will not get anything done, and we will absolutely lose our sanity in the process. Ask me how I know.
Well, and I mean, everything can just take over, right? And I think so many people can find themselves in a space where they feel just at the whim of their environment and the people around them. And if we just took control and do the proper planning and set those boundaries, right? Because when we know, then they can know. But if we don't know, right?
Right. Yeah, we have to go first. We have to be the one to set the boundary for what are we going to pay attention to? How much attention are we going to give it? Who gets our time? Who doesn't get our time? And we have to be brave enough to do that. Otherwise, just like you're saying, we end up in a space, a mental space where everything feels urgent, whether it is or not. And we end up in reaction mode all day long, running around with a big old fire extinguisher, putting out fires, and not getting anything done. And so when my clients come to me and they're like, Tracy, I have this plan for my business and I've been working on it for 60 days and I'm not getting anywhere. My first question is, let me look at your calendar. What are you let me look at your day to day. Let me look at a typical week. What does this look like? Because I found this out
Yeah.
myself. When I said ask me how I know, it's when I started building my online business, it was alongside my full-time corporate career. I couldn't just quit cold turkey and do this and, you
Yep.
know, tell my husband, hey, I'm not going to make any money for a while. That was not going to go. So,
Yeah.
so I had to build this alongside the full-time job and the kids. And they were busy. They played every sport with a ball. And what I found was I was exhausted. And I was like, why am I not enjoying this? Why am I so tired? Why am I on the verge of burnout? And it was because I was not planning my day, planning my week with boundaries around things that would allow me to have space to breathe. I was just reacting to everything every day, all day long, getting it to the end of the day, waking up the next day, doing it again, and wondering, why am I not gaining any traction? Well, it's because you're running
Yeah.
around with a fire extinguisher. You're not gaining
Yeah.
any traction because you're not being intentional with your time.
Totally. I love the fire extinguisher analogy of like running around with this extinguisher, putting out everybody else's fires. And, I've had to learn that in my own career that everybody else's fires are not yours.
No.
If somebody else has not managed their time, sorry, I can't, bend my entire plan that I have set for myself for the success of me, my teams, the company, because you didn't plan properly, right? Or you didn't think ahead. I'm just curious, are there any specific boundaries that you've had to set, whether it was like either like a really big boundary or maybe a recent boundary that has maybe been a little bit difficult, or maybe people didn't react so well to? Because I know sometimes when I have to set those boundaries, there's sometimes some resistance to that.
Sometimes there's some pushback. Yeah, I've had to do that
Yeah.
both personally and professionally. And so,
Yeah.
from a professional standpoint, I had to, when I was on the verge of exhaustion, I had to say, okay, how do I want this week to go? And I needed to take control and design the week that was going to, in a way that was going to benefit me. And just like you're saying, somebody else's emergency does not make it my emergency.
Yeah.
But as women, we want to help, we care, we love other people, all that. So professionally, a difficult boundary I've had to set recently, and a little scary too, was when I was finally able to exit corporate and I had full control over my
Wow.
week. And I asked myself, and I was spending my weeks um, without boundaries, and I was ping ponging again. And I was like, okay, I left the corporate career. I thought that was what was exhausting me. Now I'm in the online space and I'm ping ponging from meeting with a client to trying to create a course to meeting with a client to trying to create a course. And so I realized that ping ponging is mentally draining. So, what I needed to do was design my typical week the way I wanted it to go. And the way I wanted it to go was I don't do anything public facing on Monday or Friday because I don't want to fix my hair and put on makeup and matching clothes. And there's very few exceptions to that. Like, if there's a really great podcast interview or a summit, or I'm creating a quiz right now with the gal I hired to create the quiz. The only time we have to meet together is on Friday, but that's okay. She doesn't care what I look like. So I can make exceptions as I as I can. I decided my public facing days would be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. My client days would be Tuesday, Wednesday only, from the hours of 11 a.m. Central to 3:30. That was scary because I've had some people that want to hire me and they'll go, and I'll say with them, I'll say to them, now before you hire me and you pay me money and we get this thing going, I see clients on Tuesdays and Wednesdays between the hours of 11 a.m. and 3:30. And I've had some people say, well, that doesn't work for me. And I've had to be brave enough to say, I'm so sorry. I guess, if anything changes, let me know. But I had to be brave enough to realize if I'm going to hold that boundary, I've got to hold it. Now, I will make an exception every now and then. If I happen to be traveling on a Tuesday or something, I'll see some people on
Mm,
Thursday afternoon, but that's
yeah.
an exception. Or if one of my clients is sick and they boxer me on a Monday and they give me 24 hours notice, which is another boundary that I've had to hold tight to, because when you have a client that you're supposed to meet with and 30 minutes before you're supposed to hop on Zoom, they're emailing you saying, I'm so sorry, I should have emailed you sooner, I'm on vacation, or
Mm,
I'm sick and I just don't feel up to it. I think it's just a cold. It's not like they're in the hospital. You know what I mean?
right.
An emergency
Yeah.
is an emergency. If somebody passes away, if it is truly a last minute
Yeah.
thing, I will make an
Yeah.
exception. But I've had times
Yeah.
where it's not a last minute thing. I had a client that just didn't put it on their schedule. And she said,
Mm,
well, let me know when I can reschedule that. And I said, unfortunately, you can't. I said, I'm sorry.
yeah.
And that was hard for me because I love people and I want to make people happy. But I thought, you know what? If you don't have the respect and the sense of urgency that this is not important to you, then I'm not going to bend over backwards and accommodate what you should have put on your schedule. And she didn't do it again, but I mean, that's hard stuff. It really is.
Yeah.
And, having a
Yeah.
boundary around when somebody does a 6 pay option on my program, having a boundary around the fact that I will collect that money. I had a client that paid me 3 payments, canceled her PayPal account, which I will never use PayPal again, canceled her PayPal account, and then tried to disappear off social media. Well, what she didn't realize was on her intake form, I had her address, I had her phone number, I had all the information. And so I just reached out to her and I said, look, I don't know what's going on, but these final 3 payments need to be made. And, but that's a boundary you have to have as a CEO. So boundaries help your business thrive, help you stay profitable, help you protect your time. But also having those boundaries gives me the brain space to know on Mondays and Fridays, I have a whole day. It's not really a whole day. I mean, technically, I've got the whole day, but we all know that disappears in a hurry after you start doing laundry and with the dog and all that jazz.
Yeah.
But it is a day where I can breathe, where I have white space.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I was ping ponging all day Monday, and I wasn't really gaining traction on anything.
And you mentioned being a CEO, you actually help your clients manage their time like a CEO. What does that look like? And how do boundaries kind of, play a part in that?
It looks very much like the way I decided to structure my week. I asked my client,
Mhm.
how many hours a week do you want to work? How much income, first of all, how much income do you need to make? Because not everybody needs to make $100,000 a year to keep this
Right.
online business. Some people are replacing a corporate salary of $50,000. And that looks very different between $50,000 is the goal and $100,000 is the goal. Then the question
Hmm.
is, how many hours a week do you want to work? How do you want your week to flow? And if they say to me, if they have little kids that they drop off at school in the morning and they want to be at the bus stop every day at 3 o'clock to pick up those kids and they don't want to think about their business again until the kids are in bed, then we work on designing their week that way. Or if they're similar to me and they're empty nesters and they say, you know what, I really like what you've designed where you've got some buffer room, but I think I want my white space days to be Thursday and Friday to give me a nice long weekend. And then I want to see my clients on Mondays and Wednesdays only. And then I feel really good on Tuesdays and I feel really good in the morning. Afternoons, I'm kind of sluggish. So I'm thinking Tuesdays are my course creation days and my content creation days. And so we just talk through it. What is authentic to them? What brings them ease and flow? Now, having said that, if their income goal doesn't match the amount of hours they're willing to put in, we have a problem.
Yeah.
That's another
Right.
conversation.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
we design so managing your time like a CEO means managing your time in a way that brings you joy, ease, flow, so you can make the money you want. Also recognizing when you need to be delegating things. So one of the things I ask my clients when they're saying to me, I'm trying to do all the things and I have a VA I hired, but I don't know what to give that person. I'm like, okay,
Mm,
as you're moving through the next few days and you're going to do something in your business, I want you to ask yourself, does this have to be done by me? Yes or no? Does it have to be done right now? Yes or no?
yeah.
So if it has to be done by me and the answer is yes, The next question is, does it have to be done right now? The answer is almost always no, unless someone is broken,
Right.
bleeding, or on fire. And so that's where, if something pops up in the middle of my day when I have planned to record podcast episodes and I
Hmm.
get this email and I think, oh, I could just respond to that real quick. Or there's a summit I want to apply for, or a podcast I want to apply for. I don't need to think that that's urgent and do that right then. What I need to do is look at my schedule and say, what's the deadline on that? When can I fit that into what I've already got planned? Instead of me reacting and responding right then, does it have to be done by me? Yes. Does it have to be done right now? Not necessarily. I'm going to tuck it into my schedule the way I've planned it. And then for does it have to be done by me? No. Ha, aha. That's a great possible delegation thing, right? And that could be
Yes.
delegating to your VA. That could be delegating to your significant other, your spouse, your children. I don't know how many of my clients have kids that are perfectly capable of doing so many things, and they don't let the kids do those things. Folding laundry, starting laundry, ironing their clothes, making their lunch. You know what I mean? There's just, it sounds terrible, but our kids are super self sufficient young adults, and they were when they went off to college because it didn't necessarily have to be done by me. And I
Yep.
recognize that.
There's so many things that can come in a day, right? So like, let's say we sit down and we have that conversation and we build our ideal week and we know exactly what we want that to look like.
Mm-hmm.
And then everybody else comes in with their ideas,
Yep.
right? How do we build those boundaries in to those daily routines and those weekly routines that we have then set for ourselves?
That's a really great question. And it's not easy because again, I want to please everybody. I want everybody to be happy.
Yeah.
I want everybody to get what they need exactly when they need it. I don't want anybody to wait, but that's not realistic. And
Yeah.
so when you're talking about when everybody comes in with their ideas, are they coming in with things that they want you to do that feel urgent, or are they coming in with their ideas about how they think you should do things?
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I would say like for an entrepreneur, I would say it's a lot of ideas, right? So we set the plan and then we're like, oh, but I should go over here and do this thing and go over here and do this thing, right? And
Yeah.
then for those in a corporate career, it's a lot of times everybody else needs your time. Everybody else has a question, right? And it can feel, almost like we're the bad guy to
Yeah.
say, I'm sorry, this is what I have blocked. If you have a question, here's where you can either like, you can submit it here, or I have, this hour block where you can call me and that's where I'm available for answering questions, right?
Yeah. It's tough in a corporate environment. That's why I don't miss it very much because
Yeah.
when I had to work in an office, and because I'm a nice person, because I'm naturally a coach, people would come to me with their problems to solve personally, professionally, all that. And it wasn't that I didn't want to help them, but if that's all I did
Right.
all day long, I wasn't going to get my work done. And so I did have to sometimes just shut the door and say, on a conference call. Or if somebody pops in, just say, you know what, I'm right in the middle of a project. Could you email me what your ideas are and let me review that. Let me just have a minute to process what you're saying so I can get back to you in a better way. So saying something like that where you acknowledge the person, you don't discount them, and you give them a solution. Hopefully they'll take that and be like, oh yeah, sure, I'll email you, no problem. And then you could say, I will get back to you by tomorrow. And then you have to make sure you do
Mhm.
get back to them by tomorrow.
Right.
Because things,
Right.
again, most things are rarely urgent, in
Right.
life and in business. And when it comes to people coming in with their ideas of how I should grow, if I've asked for feedback, that's one thing. If I
Right.
haven't, or if I'm listening to, I was working with a one-to-one client earlier today, and she said, I think I'm consuming too much information. And I said, tell me what you mean.
Mhm.
Because she was feeling overwhelmed. She was feeling like she was pulled in different directions. And I said, tell me
Yeah.
what's going on. And she said, I think I'm consuming too much information. And I said, what do you mean? She said, I'm listening to some podcasts. They're really great. I'm listening to some replays of a webinar or live masterclass. They're really great. But I end up getting these ideas and I feel like I've got to go implement that idea right away. And I said, nope,
Mhm.
here's a boundary situation. I said, we have to have a boundary around this. As a
Yeah.
CEO that has a goal of doing X, Y, and Z in the next 3 to 6 months, if that piece of content you're consuming applies directly to what you're creating in the next 3 to 6 months, then digest it and process it and get your ideas from it and use it to fuel you. If it doesn't, park it in your parking lot of really cool things you're going to come back to later. You can make a Trello board. You can make a Google sheet. You can write it down on with a piece of paper and a pen. You can make a Google
Mhm.
task where you save
Yeah.
that podcast episode and you pop the episode in with your note on your Google sheet or your Trello board that says, this podcast episode was all about taking the sleaze out of sales. I don't know, just spitballing. And the episode's there. And when I'm thinking about my sales process, I want to come back and listen to this. That way, you haven't lost it, and you don't feel like you have to consume it right away, but it's there when you need it. The other thing I talk to my clients and students about is with regard to consuming content in the online space, especially when we buy a course or we buy a program, we feel like we have to consume it right then, or we have wasted our money,
Mhm.
or we
Yeah.
download a free thing, or we opt in for a free bundle and there's all these bundle goodies in it, right? And we feel like if we don't just dive into that right now, that we're not going to get what we want out of it. That's not true. This is not a steak dinner that is going to get cold if you don't eat it right now, right?
Oh, I love that.
A
Yes.
steak dinner is going to turn into rubber if you don't eat it. That's an urgent situation.
Mhm.
But buying a course is what I want you to think of is you're creating a research library for yourself. So, for
Yeah.
example, I have had a podcast on my list of business goals for about 3 years. And I bought a podcast course last year because the person that I was following and I knew I wanted to work with had it on sale for $197. And she said, I'm adding some stuff to it. The price is going up to $797. If you want it at $197, you better buy it. I bought it. Did I do anything with it? No, because the timing wasn't right in my business. I put it in my
Yeah.
Trello list of courses that I purchased with the bookmark of how to log in. And this spring, I was like, this summer is when I'm launching my podcast. I was able to go to my course library, find that podcast course, consume it. I was able to look at bundle goodies that I had downloaded for free over the past couple of years that had to do with podcasting. And so the way I visualize this working for you is when you were in high school or college and you were going to write a research paper on a topic, you didn't walk into the library, consume every book in the library, and let the library tell you what your topic was going to be and what you were going to do next, right?
Mhm.
You walked into the library with a boundary around this is the topic that I'm writing about. This is what I need to consume to accomplish my goal of writing this paper about this topic. This other stuff in the library is awesome, and I'm going to put it on my parking lot of things I can come back to later. But right now, I've got my blinders on. I'm going to achieve this. And so it's the same thing when we're downloading all this stuff and have all this content. Save it for when the time is right for you to consume it.
I love that example because actually, Tracy, there's a course I bought at the beginning of this year that there was a couple of courses I bought at the beginning of this year. And one of them, I actually did exactly that. And I've never done that before, but I bought it. Same thing. There was a deal, there was a sale. It was the only time happening this year, but I knew I was like, okay, this is something that later this summer, once I, get the podcast launch done and all these different things completed, then I'm going to be ready for this. But I don't want to wait until next year. So I bought it and cataloged it just like you're saying. And I love what you're explaining here too, because it just shows the more clear we are in this example of going in to do a research paper and going into the library, the more clear we are on what we are doing and why and where we're going and how we're going to get there and who's coming with us, the more we're able to say either no,
Yes.
this doesn't
Yes.
fit just at all, right? Or no, not right now. And
Exactly.
I have to say that to my teams all the time.
Right.
No, not right now, right?
Yeah.
On this day at this time, or like my calendar is up to date next week, go ahead and grab a time and we'll talk about that. Because if it's not urgent or if it's not part of the bigger plan, we can't allow that to derail that plan, or that's when we end up at the end of the day I don't know what I did today. I don't know what I got done, right? Like I hear that all the time.
Yeah, me too. How did that feel when you bought that course and you got a bargain on it and you parked it? How did that feel?
You know, it was really interesting because at first there was a little bit of that like urgency that, almost of I don't know if it's really like guilt or shame, but it's kind of like, ooh, like should I have not bought this? Should I have not spent this? Right? Because we all have lots of expenses and the world is getting more expensive. And so there was a
Yeah,
little bit of that feeling. But as I built and followed the plan that I already had in place for those next few months, I knew the confidence built in me that okay, no, this isn't going away. I have this for life, right? And even when it's a podcast you want to listen to, or a
right.
podcast episode, or a YouTube video, or something that you're consuming, like you said, just like that free content out there, or webinar replay, I will literally link that stuff in my calendar and block time for it. Or like if I'm driving somewhere on Saturday, I throw the link in there and then I open it on my drive and I listen while I'm driving, right? Because it helps us stay on top of ourselves, of
Exactly.
actually driving the car where we want it to go.
Right, right, right. Yeah. No, it's empowering. It feels good. There is that moment of buyer's remorse or, gosh, should I just,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. But no,
yeah,
yeah, to me, it almost sort of shores up my confidence as a CEO of I am in
yeah.
control of this. I'm going to stay on track with my goals. This ensures that I'm going to make progress on my goals and not let myself squirrel off into something that I don't need to be doing right now. But just as you're saying, I do the same thing. Um, I have podcasts that I listen to when I'm walking the dog, making lunch, getting ready in the morning, doing laundry. When I have that time when I can listen to something, I will listen to a replay of a webinar or masterclass.
Yeah.
What I have to do though is, like my client was saying, if there is a super cool idea, I can, I will tell the phone, I don't want to say it right now because it'll turn on, to send me an email. And I will
Yes.
email myself out walking the dog. I don't even break stride. And I say, email me. And then I say on the email, this is a great idea. Here's the idea. Put this in your list of really cool ideas. When I get back to my desk, I can park that in my list of really cool ideas. But then I haven't squirreled off into something I shouldn't have.
Totally. And you talk a lot about organization too, and kind of, this idea of organizing ourselves. Do you do a lot of time batching? So when you build out that ideal week and you decide what you want that to look like and what that will look like, are you batching? Are you putting things of a similar nature together so that it's a little bit easier for you?
Yes, I am. And I've grown into that. Time blocking is
Mm,
not something that I've ever found to be really effective for me. Although I guess what I do is a form of time blocking because once I fill in, I plan a week in advance and I look at all the known appointments, the podcast interviews I'm going to do, my live training every week. Do I have any doctor's appointments? All that stuff that's known, client appointments, and I fill all that in, and then I'm able to see where are my pockets of opportunity. So I do kind of sort of time block. But yes, I batch as much as possible. So an example of this is I send an email to my list on Tuesday, and then I send them a 30-minute reminder email on Thursday telling them I'm going to go live in 30 minutes. And then I send them an email on Friday that says something about, hey, did you miss my live training? This is what we talked about. Inside the training, you'll find XYZ. Here's the replay. So I write all of those emails plus my YouTube show notes on Tuesday morning. The only email that's going out that day is the Tuesday one. But I go ahead and I write the
mhm.
30-minute one and I write the Friday one because I'm already in the mindset of what I want to say.
Right.
And so it's so much easier instead of coming back to it on Thursday morning and writing one or taking the chance that there really is an urgent, broken, bleeding around
Yeah.
matter on Thursday morning and the email doesn't go out. You know what I mean? So while I have the
Yeah.
chance, I do that on Tuesdays. On when I am pretty boringly organized. On Wednesdays, I do grocery list. Every Wednesday, I do a grocery list. Sometimes it ends up being on Thursday, but most of the time it's on Wednesday. I do my whole calendar for the whole next week on Wednesday. And then my live training, I write that on Fridays. And when I was on my own, before I had my assistant, I would write out the script for my live training. And this was before AI. I think AI tools were probably around years ago, but I didn't know what they were. And then I would pull out a couple of tips to write a social media post about that topic, another couple of tips, another social media post. That was what I was going to send the email to my list, was also what was about in that live training. My blog
Mm.
was created based on that live training. And so I try to batch all of that on a Friday. And back when I was creating content for my Facebook group, my free Facebook group by myself, I would do that on Thursdays because I was in that mindset and I was already there. And rather than context switching and exhausting my brain, I allowed my brain to flow through all of it that I needed to get out of me and get it done all at one time.
How many people spend time just ping ponging around, whether it's answering other people's requests or following their own, brain ping pong of ideas. Oh, this thing and that thing and that
Right.
thing. Versus, like you said, you're not context switching. You're not having to reframe your brain for each new thing because that takes time. I think, what is it, like 20 minutes that it takes for your brain to readjust from one thing to the next? So if you're switching back and forth, you're losing 20 minutes every single time, which is terrifying. But it's amazing when you actually apply this, how much more you can get done to the point that people are like, how did you actually get that done? Like, do you never sleep? Like, how do you do it? Right.
Yes, yes, totally. And you have way more energy because the
Yes.
thinking just wears your brain out.
100%. And I think, like sticking to those plans and really sticking to your boundaries that you've set for yourself. If you're new to that, that can feel really challenging. What would you say are maybe like the biggest challenges that your clients have faced or come up against, and how do you help them through that?
With regard to boundaries,
Yeah, yeah, like how to set that in their everyday life when they've, set the plan and then there's all this stuff coming in and it could be either a boundary with themselves or other people. Like, how do you help them overcome those challenges?
yeah, it's not easy because it's on them to do it, but I have to just sort of come alongside them and remind them these boundaries are in place for a reason. These boundaries are in place for your success. And literally, we are derailing our own success if we don't put some bumpers around our time, put some bumpers around what we're going to work on and when. Because again, back to that reaction mode thing, if you want to carry around a fire extinguisher all day, put out fires and be in reaction mode, that's okay. That's your choice. But at the end of the
Yeah.
day and the end of the week, you can't say, where did my time go? Why didn't I get anything done? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that, call out that it's a choice
Yeah, it is.
because, I hear it all the time where people will say to me, again, you mentioned, women earlier who just want to, help and serve and all of that. It's a lot of women too, I hear will say, oh, I can't do what I need to do. Like, yeah, I block that on my calendar, but I can't actually do it because I need to be there for everybody else. And I'll often remind them that you actually are going to show up so much better and have so much more to offer if you first honor what you set for yourself, because you said it before, you have more energy, right? Like that, I mean, that changes everything.
For sure. Yeah. I'm a better mom when I have boundaries around my time. Like when I started working from home, that was also a difficult thing to do, was to set
Yeah.
boundaries around my time because yeah, I'm here, but that doesn't mean that the termite pest control guy can just show up whenever. I might be on a
Yeah.
Zoom call, you know, and
Yep.
it took my family a little bit to realize that yeah, mom's here, mom's working in the house, but y'all need to treat mom like she's at a corporate job because you know, well, and a lot of times my answer, and our kids are older. I make it, they're not little bitty, but I would say, okay, what would you do if I wasn't here? What would the solution be if
Yeah.
I wasn't here? And then they would figure it out, and they would realize
Hmm.
that there are things that they need me for, absolutely. But we've raised some really independent, resilient kids that can think for themselves and take care of themselves because we've put boundaries around some things as a family. But yeah, that was tough in the beginning. Oh yeah, mom's home. She could let in the termite guy. Oh yeah, mom's home. She could meet with the roofer. Oh, uh-huh, mom's home. Really? Or you don't have
Yeah.
anything to do all day. Can you go to the store and get me XYZ? Or could you run this errand? Or could could you take me here? Could you what? I'm working.
You don't have anything going on.
Y'all are killing me. I'm working.
Were there any, so that's a good point about, switching to working from home. And I think a lot of people have made that shift in the last handful of years.
Yeah.
Were there any boundaries with yourself that you had to make in making that shift?
I'm laughing because when when people hear that I work from home, I think they think I sit on the couch with my laptop and watch Netflix and work ish. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, and so it just makes me laugh. But, for me, I sort of immediately stuck to a traditional work schedule. And so, with some exceptions, but my husband goes to work and I want to get my work done while he's at the office so that when he gets home, I'm not saying, honey, I've got, an hour's left of stuff to do. Um,
Yeah.
and so I had to set myself up for success and sort of keep that same schedule that was not 8 to 5, but not, I can't work 12 to 2 and expect to have success. And so I do get up at the same time, 6 a.m., 6:30. I get to design the morning a little bit the way I want to rather than getting the exercise in immediately because I've got to go to the office. I have an opportunity to get some work done in my jammies, drinking my coffee, and then go get my exercise and then see my first clients. And so I get to design that, but I still have that boundary of I'm really kind of still working 8 to 5, Monday to Friday.
Yeah. You mentioned something that I think is also really important where it sounds like you're also scheduling that spaciousness for yourself in the morning, where I think a lot of people will hear us talk about planning or scheduling and they think about business and projects and work and all of these things. But if you, let's say family is really important to you, or time with
Yeah.
your significant other, or time for reading, or time for, jammy and coffee time, like I love a good spacious morning with, cozy clothes and a cup of coffee. And so that time, I think for, without even saying it, you're saying it, right? Like blocking that time as well for the spaciousness, the creativity, the fun, the time for you.
Exactly. I want to be able to walk the dog every day. And
Yeah.
that's something that's important to me. That's my exercise for the day. It started during COVID when I was like, it was in this house, and I was like, I got to get outside. I just got to get outside into the sunshine.
Yeah.
And I take the dog with me. And now he comes to find me around 9:30 or 10 every morning. And he's like, are we going? Like
Oh,
staring at me. Or why don't you have your clothes on? Where are your shoes? Why are we not going? What is happening? And so it felt guilty to do it, honestly, because I am a
yeah.
producer. I'm a self starter. I'm not a workaholic, but I do love to work.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people have hobbies. My hobby is this business because I love it so much. So there was a part of me that felt guilty. Oh my gosh, I don't have time to go walk the dog. I've got a business to build. But what I realized was for my mental health, it wasn't healthy. I needed to get out. I needed
Yeah.
to get into fresh air. I needed to get into the sunshine. I needed to have time and space to visualize my goals, do some affirmations. When I'm reading a book about something that's going to help me build my business, that's not a time waster. I'm still working. I just have to remind myself,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
but yeah, you get to
Yeah.
design the week the way you want to have it. And just like you're saying, if you have a spouse that is off on Fridays and you don't want to work on Fridays, cool. Set your week up for how you can take that whole day off and be together. Or if your kids, you need to be at the bus stop, or you need to pick them up, or there's a school play, or like our kids when they were in middle school and high school, they played every sport that had a ball. And our daughter played golf. I'd be out on the golf course. And sometimes I would take my phone or my laptop in between rounds while she was not on the course, but uh,
Mhm.
and try to get some stuff done that way. But you get to design this thing the way you want it to go.
Yeah. I love that empowerment of that. One other question on that piece is, was it hard for you to then stop working when your husband came home? Like if you're, in the flow and it's your hobby and you love it so much, was that hard to kind of be like, I gotta stop. I gotta shut it off until tomorrow?
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes it was, and there were times when I was in flow, and when he came in the door, like if I was writing a part of a course, or I was specifically with
Mhm.
writing, if I was writing a
Yeah.
training or a master or writing something, he would come in the door and he figured out the look on my face when I'm in flow, and he just real sweetly come over and say, "Good to see you." Give me a kiss on the forehead, and he go, "I'm headed to the shower." And he'd know that I was going to wrap it up as quickly as possible. Or there were sometimes on
Yeah.
Saturday morning that I needed to write a piece of content. And for whatever reason the ideas were flowing and it was just coming, and he's so gracious. He'll look at me and go, "Is the TV going to bother you?" And I'll either say yes or no. So yeah, it's difficult sometimes to shut it off, and that's where my family's just been super understanding. But
Mm.
I try really hard to, by the time he's home, shut it all down. Because that's what I would want. If I got home from a hard day
Mm.
at work and I just wanted to have a cocktail with him and he's on his laptop, that would irritate me, you know? so
Yeah.
so I try, because why am I building this business if I don't get to do the things I want to do and I don't get to spend time with the people that I love?
Yeah. Well, when we were first scheduling this interview, I have, my scheduling link for like introductory, little 30-minute calls, but I'll manually schedule actual interviews. And when you had looked at my scheduler and you said, "Oh, yeah, that's not going to work for me. Like I need this and this. This is what I can do." I was like, "You are the right person for this," because you're so clear. And
Thanks.
I think that's
It was not easy for me to say that to you. I think it was because I don't work after 4, and I try
yeah.
really hard not to. That wasn't easy to say because I thought, she might not have me on her podcast if I can't, bend this rule. But that rule is there in place because I really want to be wrapped up by the time he gets home from work.
Yeah, for you, because it sounds like another goal and another desire is those meaningful relationships and connections with your family. So it's not even like you're, not doing something for yourself still or for what you're wanting to do. It's that's your next intention is no,
Yeah.
yeah, this is my time for my family, for my significant other, for, evening wind down time, and we're going to connect in this way. So, I mean, that's beautiful.
Thanks. Thanks. It's taken me a little bit to get there.
It does. It can take time. I mean, that's a good point because we can kind of lose patience with ourselves sometimes when we mess up on a boundary or, so I think having grace with ourselves too is important and recognizing, like you said, it does. It can take time.
For sure.
And you have an amazing free group on Facebook. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that? I'm a part of it. Just, shameless plug. I love the community that you have built.
Thank you. So the free Facebook group is called Be a Confident Entrepreneur, Get Visible, Grow Your Email List and Your Income. And we have right now over 2,600 online entrepreneurs that are just like us, that are building businesses that need help. And the thing I love about the community is it's not the Tracy Beavers show. Yes, it's my group. Yes, I'm in there
Yeah.
giving value, going live every week, supporting people, teaching them visibility and list growth strategies. But there are so many things I don't know anything about, right? And there's other members that are experts in that. So I don't consider myself an expert in time management. Am I good at it? Yeah. Am I successful with it? Sure. But there's some people in that group that are better at it than I am. And so if somebody were to post in the group and say, "Hey, I'm really having trouble holding a boundary," one of those members who's an expert in that is going to swoop in and comment and answer their question. And so everybody gets support when they need it. And they can also promote their offers anytime. And I was really nervous to allow that to happen because some of the groups I was in had turned into a spam fest where all anybody's
Mhm.
doing is posting their promotion and nobody's paying attention to anything else anybody's saying. But in my group,
Yeah.
thankfully, I attract people like me and you who are kind, warm people who aren't spammies and just promote when you want to, when you need to. And
Mhm.
they're there to give value and support other people on your area of expertise. It's just a win-win.
Yeah. I think it's a beautiful sense of support within that community. And I mean, I for one am very grateful to be a part of it. And, if you're listening now and you have a business idea or you're building a business and you don't know where to get started, or you're needing that extra support and community, because in the beginning, we talked about it earlier, things are expensive. And so to be able to jump into a community like that, dare I say, it's almost more valuable than like a mastermind, because you're pulling from so many more people, right?
Yes.
You're pulling from so many more brains who are coming together, conjoining and sharing their ideas
Mhm.
to the point where all rising tides lift all boats.
Exactly. Yep. I say that every week at the end of my live training. When one of us rises, we all rise. And so that's why we have to keep cheering for each other. And just as you're saying, having a place where you can come in and get real support from experts and
Yeah.
save you some time and some money. We have a lot of course creators that come in and they'll post and they'll say, I want to create this course. I cannot afford something like Kajabi right now. What other options are available? And people will dive in and say, okay, this is my tech stack. This is what I chose, and this is how much it costs a month. And these are the pros and cons. Oh, okay, cool. Well, this is my tech stack, and this is what I did. Da, 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 da. And it's really fun. It's really refreshing. And a lot of people tell me it's their favorite place to be. So it makes me really happy.
That's amazing. Well, today, Tracy, you have shared so many wisdom bombs. What would you say if someone listening to this doesn't know where to begin? What is the first thing we should all go do right now?
Gosh, I think the first thing that I would do is visualize, how do you want your day and your week to go? How do you want this thing to go? You're building the business, you're in charge of it. Yes, there's work that needs to be done. Some of that work's going to be really hard and it's going to stink. But you are in control. You get to decide. And so just reflect on that and think through, do I want to ping pong and be exhausted? Do I want to have some boundaries around my time? Do I want to delegate some things? And then create a system to execute on that. And don't be afraid to hold a boundary. People respect you more for it in the end.
Absolutely. Yes. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today, talking to us about boundaries and organizing ourselves and, managing our time better. You have shared so much wisdom, and I just want to thank you again for sharing that with us.
You bet. Thanks so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for braving the inside of your mind with me. The better we understand ourselves, the more deeply we understand the world. And as our awareness grows, life just gets better and better. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to leave a review and share this with anyone else you think could benefit from listening. A quick reminder that the content shared in this podcast is for informational purposes only. I am not a licensed therapist, and the discussions here are not a substitute for professional advice. If you're dealing with a specific issue or need personalized guidance, please consult with a qualified professional. Your well-being is important, and this podcast is simply a platform for sharing insights and experiences. I appreciate you spending this time with me. Until next time.